going to dive right in because we've got a lot to talk about today. Welcome, everyone, to our monthly digital drop-in free webinar. I'm so excited to have you all joining us today. To start us off, I do want to let everybody know that our digital drop-ins starting this year are now hosted and supported by Learn Tourism, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them.
Welcome to the Academy at learntourism.org. Our mission is to advance the tourism industry by leveraging science, business psychology, and adult education to build sustainable economies and foster meaningful experiences. We partner with destinations, travel planners, and industry professionals to deliver cutting-edge training programs and resources. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in the ever-evolving tourism landscape. Through our learning experience platform, we offer customized course development and access to inspiring experts. These tailored solutions are designed to enhance professional growth and make a significant impact in the global industry. Join us as we explore new ideas and share valuable insights to shape the future of tourism. Together, we can create a dynamic and engaging environment that fosters innovation and collaboration throughout the tourism sector. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to a dynamic session. Connect with us at learntourism.org to unlock your potential and contribute to the vibrant world of tourism. Let's make a difference together.
Excellent. So for those of you who know me, again, if you haven't checked out learntourism.org, please do, so you can get a vision for what I'm now working on with our amazing team there. And if you're new to our digital drop-ins, that'll just give you an idea of what our focus is going forward. So again, I'm excited today, mostly because I have been doing video for a long time. Essentially, for me, when I started teaching online around 2013, 2014, there weren't a lot of people in the space, and it was a pretty intense lift to learn how to do all the things, right? To learn how to video record myself, to learn how to essentially edit myself. I often laugh that I have edited probably hundreds of hours of my own content of me. And so there is something maybe powerful in my professional development, and also something that makes me a little bit crazy is having to watch myself and listen to myself that many times. And so I've been amazed at just in the last 10 years how radically different the video world has become. And I think once you start working on your own video, you start to realize why videographers make such good money. And you really start to understand that video production is time consuming, but the editing is almost more time consuming, right? So this is where AI becoming more available to the public and the new tools that are developing now are just, to me, thrilling, because it means I'm going to be able to do more video content, hopefully more quickly, with better results in the end. And it's really all about just understanding what the goals of my content are and what I want to accomplish. So today I'm going to highlight 4 tools, and I'm going to give a shout out back to Stephen at Learn Tourism, because since I joined their team, part of why I can give this webinar today is because I've actually been using these tools for the last few months and really digging in. And we really focus on how we can be more engaging and interactive in the way we do everything, and also be authentic and ourselves. And so finding how we can do both of those things at the same time in this kind of new world of DIY video, I think is a really powerful process. And I really invite everyone to think of it as a process, right? Right now, you need to figure out what kind of problems you want to solve, what kind of content you want to create, who your audiences are, and make decisions about how you're creating video, your workflows, your end products. You need to just choose tools that you think are going to solve those problems and really help you. And you might have to evolve through a few tools. Most of all, what I thought today before we started the webinar is that it's really important to remember every tool is literally adapting and changing and growing as you use it. So whatever tool you choose, I think it's important to interact with the people who create that software or are creating those features, and make sure that you have an open dialogue with them about what you want to see in the future, because you would be amazed at how many times I have engaged with the platforms and said, we need this particular feature, we need this particular capability, and I might not get it right away, but I get it pretty quickly. Essentially, what I want to talk about first is the platform limitations, right? So there's common problems and issues when it comes to these DIY tools. That's always been true. With AI, this problem is not necessarily going away. It's hard to find something right now that is like a one size fits all, right? Because we're still in this sort of problem solution era of developing the AI tools, and the video tools are expanding based on what their own users actually need. So it might be difficult to find something that is perfect and can do everything. So it's really valuable to understand the limitations of different tools. And if you're assessing anything outside of the four I mentioned today, really thinking about how can you ask the right questions when you're testing a tool, using a free trial or whatever it is, talking to a salesperson. How can you really speak to them about what it is that you want to be able to do and make sure there's no limitations to that? So Descript and Synthesia are two of the tools I want to talk about today. And again, we're going to do a very cool demo so we can look at these a little bit later on in the webinar. But some of the limitations that we have right out of the gate are Descript, which is great for a lot of different things, especially if you want to turn video content into written content or you want to edit video content. Essentially, it's got limited motion graphics. So whether or not you can animate your graphics, there's going to be limitations to that. There's some training. We're going to talk about their voice cloning and what that means. They have some great audio tools that are amazing to use. But when it comes to cloning your voice, it's a little bit more like the relationship you build with the system so that you can teach it how to speak like you. And then the advanced effects are not really available in the same way they are in some other tools. Synthesia, which I think is somewhat comparable to Descript just in the vastness of what it's capable of doing, although different focus. They do a great job of AI avatars, creating video and having great layouts and templates, but the avatars still look a little bit artificial. They don't have quite the full movement, although they're getting better all the time. They just don't seem 100% natural, and it depends on which avatar you choose. And we'll look at some of the avatars. They have heavily templated outputs in Synthesia. So again, if you're creating videos, especially if you've recorded yourself, they've got these kind of amazing templated layouts, but you are just limited, right? If you're a graphic designer, if you're somebody that really wants to customize, you're going to run into some roadblocks there. And then when it comes to editing, unlike Descript, they don't have the same, I feel, depth of a video editor program. So if I'm not sure how many of you are used to video editing, but essentially we really see that there's a style to video editors, right? You have the tracks, you have different tools that you might be used to seeing. Descript does a better job of that than, let's say, Synthesia does. The other two tools I want to talk about today are Vidyard and Vimeo. Vidyard is also very relatable to Synthesia in some ways, although again, it has a different sort of purpose and focus. They don't have a full video editor either, so not as in-depth as something like Descript. Some of the features that they offer, you have to keep upgrading to get access to those. That's actually pretty common right now, so you'll see that depending on the level of customization and the depth of the tool, you may have to upgrade. And then Vidyard has a little bit less customizable systems. So whereas I think Synthesia gives you a lot of customization, even though they have a lot of templates and layouts built in, Vidyard doesn't quite go that far. And then Vimeo, which many of you may have heard or may already be using, they are really expanding what they're doing. And it's a little bit different because I think their focus is more on the video editing itself and hosting your videos similar to the way YouTube does it. So they have limited interactivity and their AI is in the early stage. So they don't have things like avatars yet or anything of that nature. But what they are building towards is having more ways to create your videos inside of Vimeo. And one of the things I love that their AI is doing is allowing you to really create transcript files, download those transcript files and use them in other places, turn your videos into multilingual video sets and things like that. But again, even though they are allowing you some video editing, it is going to be limited. So if you're used to some of the more in-depth tools that are out there that are Adobe, like Adobe Premiere, or maybe you're using something like Camtasia, that are a little more traditional video editors. We don't have quite the level of those capabilities in Vimeo, but man, they're giving us a lot to work with there. And so again, if you just joined, there is a poll running if you'd like to check that out. Now, with the unique selling propositions, we just talked about a few of the limitations. I want to talk about what kind of makes each one of these systems special, right? So again, this goes back to the problem solution issue. How can we make sure that whatever tool we choose actually solves our problem, saves us time, saves us money, saves us resources, whatever it is. And so in order, I think, to choose something, you want to understand the limitations and what makes it different, what makes it the right choice for you. So again, Descript is really strong for podcasters, educators, and content creators that want to be able to create a number of pieces of content out of kind of one conversation. So again, one of the things I love about Descript is I can take what we do with these webinars and upload it, edit the webinar, produce a final video, which I share with you all on Friday, and then I can easily turn it into lots of other pieces of content. So I can create different shorter pieces of content for my webinars. I can create blog posts. I can edit things to just be cleaner from a sound and audio perspective. Descript also gives you some really strong text first editing. So again, a lot of what goes on in their system, I utilize the script to make changes. So I can delete things from the script and it deletes it from the video, right? I can correct the transcript as I go along. It'll do better when it's producing captions and things like that. And also the audio is really built in and is so valuable. I'm going to show you their audio tools, which are really cool. It's important to remember when it comes to video in the modern day, people are actually more forgiving of the visuals being pixelated or not perfect or not commercial and slick and all of that. But what they don't forgive is not being able to hear or understand what's going on. So audio actually is more of a priority when it comes to DIY video. Synthesia, what makes it special is they are probably one of the biggest leaders in the AI avatar world right now, and in being able to create multilingual pieces of content. So if you care about having things in a different language, they make it really easy. Like I said, their avatars, some of them are not my favorite, but the newer avatars that they're creating, I think are getting more and more natural, more and more realistic looking and sounding. They give you multiple, I think there's probably 300 options of what your avatar looks like. You can change the sound, can do different things like that. It's a really great way to quickly create explainer and training videos of any kind from an education perspective, simply because if you have scripts, if you have the knowledge that you can plug in, it'll easily help you create the videos. And you can use stock content for video and photography. You can use your avatars. You can adjust things with your brand kit and have your own color codes and your own fonts and things like that. And it's also really good for internal communication and internal training. So if you have HR team that wants to help explain something about a change in the company to everyone, if you have different parts of your business or departments in your business where you want people to be able to understand different aspects of the work they do, you can do that. This is great for anything regulated where there's updates in, let's say, policy or law, right? I've talked to a lot of people using it for that. Great for healthcare and things like that. When it comes to Vidyard and Vimeo, again, Vidyard is going to have some of the same perks that I think Synthesia has, just in a sort of maybe smaller, less varietied way. They do have some great AI avatars in there that they're building up. They also have, I think a lot of different choices in how you lay out those things, which is awesome. But in a lot of ways, Vidyard, one of the specialties they've built is being able to create personalized sales videos that you can directly embed into your email. And so when people get an email from you, rather than writing a long email, you can do a quick video. They can watch it directly inside of their email program. And also looking at marketing and sales alignment. So just again, how do we create some video content that links up what we're doing in the marketing world with then how we respond from a sales perspective. And we attract people through the marketing and then we engage them, sell them, and even provide the customer service on the sales side. So I think they have a pretty interesting idea of how these things should flow together as a platform. And then they have great analytics and they connect into CRMs. So things like HubSpot that is where I think they are, again, taking a little bit of a perk and saying, hey, if you're already doing client management in some way or sales management in some way, we've made Vidyard easy to plug into those systems. And then Vimeo, of course, some of the biggest selling points to them are just that you can create a great database of your video content, especially if it's public facing. But even if it's something you want to share by a password or you just want to embed in sections of your website, it gives you lots of flexibility there, like YouTube. And I think their player looks a little bit cleaner. They also have built in a lot of things around live delivery, team collaboration, so just making it more interactive. I think their goal is to compete with YouTube in some ways. And so they've built out those systems, which I think are really useful. And then, like I said, their player is one of the coolest things. And again, we'll look at how their player works, but you can give it a little bit more flair and design so it matches your brand. There's, again, a lot of control over how you can produce content, share content, even sell video content. So you can sell classes directly on Vimeo and they have a payment system and everything. And so they have, again, have this like sweet spot that they keep advancing going forward. So, quick question, and maybe you can hop into the chat and share a little bit here. Each tool has something special it does really well. So, is there something that you know you need to solve? I'm curious if anybody knows, yes, I have this problem. I want to check out this tool. Feel free to hop in the chat and share with everyone what it is that you think has stood out to you so far. Again, I think it's important to start with a tool that you really feel is going to have value and then explore how far you can take it. You might add other tools later or you might even change tools later, but it's good to start with how can we actually increase productivity, increase efficiency, and all of that. So, next, I want to talk a little bit about video creation and editing features. And what I'm going to do really quick is share our poll because this is interesting information as we start. So, what is our biggest challenge with creating and using video content? Most people said time and then a skill or tech barrier. So, not quite understanding the tool. That's 69%, 50%, right? Which is pretty amazing. Time and skill are really important. Budget and content ideas are next. If we look at the next question, have we used any of these tools? So it looks like the biggest one has been Vimeo, which I expected. That's awesome. And a small number of you have been dipping your toes into Descript and Synthesia and Vidyard. That's great. I'd love to hear in the chat if you've been using another platform, what you're using. And then how confident are you about choosing a video platform that fits your needs? So most people are somewhat confident or not confident. And again, that's totally normal because I think there's so many choices right now that it gets a little wild when you think about it, right? It's hard to know what the right choice is at this point. And I see some of the comments in here. Yeah, Sumaya, Descript, very cool. I think it's really, yeah, I would definitely look into Descript. I don't think it's the same as CapCut, but I definitely think because you're a content creator, you might find there's some great things in there. John as well. Yeah. And again, I'm going to show you a demo and how these tools actually make it pretty easy to learn this stuff. And then Stephanie, I see your question about would any of these tools be a good fit for helping render horizontally filmed videos designed for YouTube and Vimeo into vertical, shorter form content for Reels? So yes, I would say that Descript and Vidyard both are good for that. And Augustine, you went to school for video editing, so you're a bit more hesitant to begin using AI generation for video. Yeah, you've been using ChatGPT. I get it. And I do want to say, when it comes to us creating our videos, we have to be thoughtful that we still reflect our brands, that we still feel like it's authentic. And that's a big question. And Nicole, I see Vidyard's on your list. Very cool. And Susan, you're promoting special events and community events. You've been using Animoto. Actually, Animoto is great. I haven't tested them out in a while, so I don't know how they're implementing AI, but I actually used them for a long time in the past because of their capabilities. And of course, Jen, Canva is awesome for some basic stuff that you can do, which I think is great. So yeah, thanks for that feedback. I'm going to launch another poll as we start talking about video creation and editing. So feel free to share some feedback here as well, and we'll hop back in to this conversation. So again, video creation and editing to me is where a lot of us get stuck. It's a lot of work. It's detailed. It can feel stressful, and there's always a learning curve. To me, this is why it's really important that you choose a tool where you have exactly the features that you need to make your life easier, because the learning process doesn't always make it feel like it's easier, right? So you have to get through that learning process first before you actually see the results. But again, we're going to talk about how you can make that happen a little bit faster and more efficiently. If we look at all four of these tools again, when it comes to creation and kind of editing, Descript again is very text based. So I think the interface is sometimes more intuitive for folks that aren't familiar with video editing. Whereas I think if you want to dig into that, the great thing is you do have the ability to see some of that more traditional stuff, and we'll look at that. That's part of the multi-track timeline, right? So in Descript, I can actually use the script to do a lot of different stuff, but I also can pop open that sort of track timeline and see everything happening and add stock music and different scenes and things like that. Again, the audio editing is built right in. We'll look at those tools. I think it's super helpful. The podcasting tools are super unique and they're built right in. So if you're doing podcasting, I think Descript is a big time saver. And then collaborative editing. So this is a great thing about Descript where I can share different things with people. They can make edits, I can make edits, and it's, awesome. I will also put as a side note, a lot of these systems, we're going to talk about pricing at the end. They are actually all fairly affordable to start with. And they have, again, different tiers and different levels. So it depends on how much customization and in depth control you want. But I don't think any of these things are completely out of the realm, right? There's different tiers that are available for folks. And Nicole, I see you haven't used any AI platforms, just Premiere Pro, but time has been your biggest challenge because you're wearing multiple hats, right? Yeah, so discovering professional templates would be a big help. We'll look at those, which is awesome. Synthesia, again, one of the ways that they're helping you create and edit is again with their AI avatar video creation. So we'll talk about that. Very cool. They've got over 140 languages represented. They've got a ton of pre-built templates. There's a very clear sort of slide to video conversion. So if you're used to building slides for educational purposes and things like that, I feel like it's super helpful. I'm able to repurpose lots of stuff there. And then the auto captions. And John, I see if you already have an Adobe Creative Suite subscription, are there any Adobe apps worth checking out? I'm going to be honest. I feel like the Adobe world is harder to learn for most people. So it's not something I suggest. If you're already familiar with them, then I would tap into any of their tools because they're deploying AI. And I think they work really well if you're already familiar. But I have found the tools I'm sharing today, there's just less bells and whistles. There's like less depth in the system. And so it's just easy to learn how to use this stuff for video in particular. Adobe Suite, of course, is like the creative suite. So it can do all sorts of stuff, graphic design, photography. There's all sorts of things you could do. So it is amazing, but I just think requires a bigger learning curve. And then we look at Vidyard and Vimeo. One thing again that Vidyard does a little different is their screen recording and screen capture. I do a lot of that as part of my work, so it's important for me to have a tool that does that. There are personalized intros and interactive calls to action, that's CTAs. And so that's that sales piece, right? Like, how can I send a video to somebody about a program I'm offering or a product or a service? They can connect in. There's those CRM and email integrations so that you can have more of a kind of customer service approach and a marketing approach. And there's great notifications built in. And then Vimeo, of course, like I said, they're working on expanding how you can edit your videos in at least a small way, how you can have different custom thumbnails, how you can have different chapters and scenes. Again, that's something we see really easily in Descript as well. So again, all of these are giving you like different editing and creation opportunities. That's why, like I said, I think it's important. A good example of this would be if a lot of your video content is a video of a person or of a product or of a process, right? You're actually taking video footage. That's going to be very different than if you have scripts and you just need to have a visual that goes with those scripts, right? For me, that's important because even though I can use AI avatars and even make an avatar of myself, which would be awesome, At the same time, I have to do a lot of screen capture to share different marketing strategies and different platforms and tools and how they work. So I don't just need to use stock photography when I'm building stuff out, right? I need to be able to record my own versions of things and utilize them in my work. So that's really important. The AI capabilities, I just wanted to highlight these so you understand how they work. I will talk in just a minute when we go live about how I'm learning tools faster, how I'm using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude to help me learn how to use a system in a faster way. I think one thing we have to remember with all of our video content, even though some of these tools might make things faster, easier, cleaner, right, from a content and a video perspective, you are still the quality control agent. And so it's really important that you double check everything. You make sure it's accurate, make sure it represents you, like I said, and your brand really well. One of the things I'm playing with in Descript that their AI doing is this overdub where I'm training Descript on my own voice. So sometimes if I need to correct something, I have a trained version of my own voice and I don't have to use kind of those voices that we're so used to hearing. I don't know about you all, but I personally hate kind of some of the AI voices that are out there. So I love the idea of using my own and feeling more authentic about it. And it's been interesting to play with that and see how it goes. Studio sound. This is one of the audio cleanup tools that I'll show you. I love this because it takes recordings from different places and just uses the AI to really clean it up in a way that sounds more professional. I love their AI transcription. So again, turning it into other types of things, blog posts, different types of social media posts, whatever it is, I can get full transcription. I can really have control over it myself. It'll do a lot of the work for me. My favorite thing is the filler word removal. It's funny, I've gotten better and not saying this kind of thing when I'm doing video, but I am from New Jersey. So I have a problem sometimes saying right? I see that come up a lot. I have to be careful I don't say you guys a lot. Way that I grew up, sometimes those things are in my language and I don't realize it. It'll actually highlight all those things and just remove it instantly from the video for me. And I feel like it's a pretty clean process. They can also take and look at the videos and adjust them so that there's more eye contact in the video, which I think is interesting. Haven't used that tool as much because it's still a little freaky, but it's a pro upgrade. So it might not be something everybody needs, but it is interesting that they're working on things like that. Synthesia, text to video with avatars, again, being able to type in what you want, create everything, have the AI sort of build it for you. Getting AI voices and the AI avatars and everything syncing well. Being able to customize your avatars, Synthesia is where I'm looking at building my own avatar of myself. And then having some AI writing tools built in, which I really appreciate, is very helpful, right? So it can help me just write a better script, right, built into the system. Vimeo, again, they're in the newer area of starting this AI stuff. When it comes to their platform, my favorite is their video transcription and the transcription files you can get from their system and the way they're allowing you to translate it into different languages. That creates great captioning for accessibility and other things. And again, this channel system they've built, which really allows people to come and view your videos just like YouTube. You can share that link to all of your public content with people, and it's a great sort of marketing tool. And I think they're going to be continuing to advance that. Figure out ways that you can upload your videos to Vimeo and then automatically parse them out to different systems like your social media and other things. And then Vidyard, again, their AI is really personalizing the video generation, especially with their work with avatars and kind of the sales perspective. Again, sales is based on real relationships, so it's a little harder to want to create a random avatar when you want to send a sales video. You really want it to be you. Also, their AI is suggesting from a sales perspective, here's the conversation you've had, here's the next conversation you might want to initiate. And this is why I think it has this close relationship to CRMs, right? So again, if you want to hop into the chat and just answer this question, if you could wave a magic wand and add one AI feature to your current video situation, your current process, what would it be? What's the most annoying thing that you have going on with your video production or creation right now? I'm just curious to hear that. And while we're doing that, I want to take a look again at the poll that I turned on. We're going to end this poll in just a moment. And I'm going to share the results with you while you're typing into the chat. And yeah, video creation and editing. What type of video content do you create or want to create the most? I love that social media and sales and marketing content are at the top, and then 87% and almost 50%. And then education and training are about 25% of you. That's awesome. How important is AI to your workflow? I see lots of folks feel like it's nice to have, over half of you. 21% of you curious but requires caution. I just want to high five that. It's really true. AI ethics are a big question right now. Being thoughtful about what system you're giving your voice and your face to, reading the terms of service, that sort of stuff. What are they doing with your data? How are they training things? Is very important to understand. And then which feature would save you the most time? I know we're talking about this in the chat too, but I see audio editing and video layouts and templates are right at the top. Over 60% and almost 80%. So yeah, and then animation and transition effects, those are built into Descript. I love their animation and transition. So again, this is great information. I really appreciate y'all sharing your thoughts here. I think video templates and layouts and the audio enhancement are really valuable. And I see just in the chat talking about color grading. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't do too much color grading, Daniel. I'd have to think about which tool would be best for that because I don't actually control, I don't worry about that as much. As long as I build the brand out a lot of times, I think it works. But a lot of you want to expedite the editing process. You want to take audio transcripts and create reels with stock video. I see, Samaya, your question about it's funny with, yeah, let's look at Descript. There would be a lot in there that you could play with for sure that I think would be great. I definitely like their stock video chat options. Of course, Canva has great stuff in there, but if you want to use the audio transcripts, Descript might be a great option. Yeah, editing again from John. Animoto's okay, but it's hard to figure out. Sometimes you spend a lot of time trying to create a semi-good video, Susan. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's hard because sometimes the learning curve is not great. The 4 systems I'm talking about today, I actually really appreciate how easy it's been to learn and work with those systems. Calling the video and expediting the editing process. So Nicole, yep, you're along with everyone else. Chloe, I like this, using and suggesting trending sounds and audio that are still relevant and appropriate for the content being produced. Trending sounds is something you're really going to find in the social media tools. I don't see that as much inside of these tools that I'm sharing today. So it might be that you still need to pay attention to social media to understand that piece of it. And then, yeah, Augustine, most of your videos are reels to specific trending audios. So you're not sure what AI feature would make it easier because your process is pretty straightforward. Yeah, exactly. I think these tools are really good when you're going beyond social media, right? If you're just focused on video for social media, I think there's it's pretty straightforward. And yeah, Stephen, thanks for mentioning that. Synthesia has the brand kit and color tool I mentioned, which is great. Stephen, I'm wondering, does Synthesia do the color grading that Daniel asked about? That's something I just haven't played with yet. If you know that, feel free to. Yeah, awesome. So that's a great note, Daniel, that Synthesia has that color grading tool built in. And then Eric, I see your question. Has anyone come across or used an AI video generation service called Play? You looked at it at a marketing conference last fall and it seemed cool, but it was pretty pricey. Yeah, I haven't, Eric, heard about that. There's so many different things out there. So it may be something you'd want to check into. And I would compare it maybe to the pricing we're going to talk about as we wrap up here. So again, thanks for sharing the answers to that question. I really appreciate it because I'm just interested about where everybody else is at since I'm learning with you all as we talk about this. Really quick, I want to talk about pricing, then we're going to jump into the demo as we wrap up. So again, you need to evaluate each platform in terms of cost, value, and the alignment with your budget and your goals and the problems that you want to solve. So I just outlined for you for quick reference, Descript, Synthesia, Vimeo, and Vidyard, exactly what their cost is now. And I actually went to their websites and wrote this out. You can click these links when you get the slide deck and you can look at their pricing. Everyone has a free version. So you don't have to commit to the paid version until you have actually played with the tool and you've decided that it is something worth using. And so a lot of these you can see if you're using the starter kind of plans, right? Even though they all have different names, they start out fairly affordable. So everything in that first tier is $59 or less. A lot of the upgrades take you up from $10 or $30 to $25 or $80. Synthesia and Vidyard, I think, have the least amount of options, and they are big on their enterprise level. And if you have a lot of different things you want to do, they can almost customize a lot of different things for you. But Vimeo and Descript, I think, have great options. And so I feel like they're a great place to test out at first. If you think some of the features we've discussed are useful for you, or some of the goals that you have are aligned with kind of what makes these things unique. And so again, you can dig in, but all of these things will let you sign up for free and test the interface, right? So you can say to yourself, does this really feel good to me? Does this feel like it's user friendly? Am I able to follow it and utilize it? And you can even have people that are members of your team or your staff create also their own accounts that go in and test it for you. So I'm curious in the chat for you to just share, do these pricing models seem doable for your team? Is this something that you think you would want to evaluate, right? Or are these still out of reach in some way? I'm just curious how everybody feels about that. So we're going to jump over as we wrap up, and I'd love if you are in the chat for you to just let me know. Thanks, John. Yeah, they seem pretty fair. Yeah, Lindsay, great. Yeah, and they are all able to have different aspects of kind of team collaboration, which we'll look at right now. Hopefully in the chat, everyone can see that I've got my browser open now. And first, we are looking at Synthesia really quickly. And you'll notice as we look through on this left-hand side, of course, this is my kind of area. That's my dashboard. I've got some shortcuts up at the top. So create a new video, the AI video assistant. So turn files and links into video, the AI dubbing, right? So translating videos, there are shortcuts right here. If we look at the workspace, the great thing is you can really organize your workspace here. This is our Learn Tourism workspace. It has all sorts of folders for different things. Also, people can share videos with me, and I have a place to create my own videos when I'm ready. The AI dubbing tool, again, this is where they can translate any video into different languages. So if you have videos out there that you'd like to translate, it's a really cool tool. If you look down here in the library and in the brand kits, you'll notice this is where we're building out sort of some of the assets. And here are all of the avatars. And so you can see as we scroll through this, there's all different types of avatars. And I just have to say, I've really gone through and made note of the ones that I feel are more natural, that feel more solidly representative of things that we want to do. But yeah, there's so many different options. There's situational options, there's blank options, so you can put your own backgrounds behind them. But they're expanding into lots of different industries. And you can see the different types of previews. So you might have one avatar and there's a few different ways to preview that person. And Kathy, I see your comment about you would only need one creator, but you wonder if free or creator would be okay for nonprofits with hundreds of employees. I think it comes down to, do you want to have seats in these different tools or not, right? Do you want to have each person with their own account? Could you have one account where everybody just shares the logins and they're all doing different things? And that really has a lot to do with how much video you're producing, because I think it's worth it to have seats when you're producing a lot of video with multiple staff members, because otherwise it gets confusing to have a huge batch of video content being added to by multiple people on a regular basis. So if we just go in here and look at the workspace, and let's say open up a video. So again, this is where I can come in and edit this content that we've created. This is an AI avatar. And when it opens up, I just want to show you a little bit of the editor inside of Synthesia. So again, you can add different scenes. And this is where you can use different stock video or your own video clips. You can use your own photos and backgrounds. If you choose your avatar, you can use that one avatar. You could potentially have more than one avatar. And if you look below, here is the script. The cool thing is for each scene, I can see what the avatar is going to say, and I can edit this in any way that I would like to, right? So I can actually just change this phrase to something else, and it will automatically change what she's saying. I can actually click here, right? Here's our logo mark. Here's the background. So as I'm clicking on these things, you can see it's giving me all the different layout options, right? And it's even allowing me to say in between the scenes, how do I want these things to be animated? This is the transitions and animations, right? So I can go in here and say, I want it to be at the start, at the end, right? I can give it a specific word. I can say, I want there to be text that moves in at this particular word in the script, right? So I can highlight that. It's going to pop into the slide as part of the video when she says offer. So I have a lot of ways once it builds it out that I can go in and edit things. I really suggest like letting them create a lot of stuff for you, right? And then playing around with it from there. But you could build it out if you wanted a lot of control. If we look at Vidyard again, and we look at the different tools over here on the side, you'll see we've got the AI avatars, we've got our library where we're storing and hosting a lot of our video, right? This is where we get into prospecting actions and insights. This is where we're really getting into that sales piece. If we look again at the editor, one of the things I love about Vidyard is their animated thumbnails, which means that the video can just be more engaging when people see it, right? I can have like scenes, I can have different chapters, I can create captions, right? I can have a variety of different actions. This is similar to YouTube, right? Where I can make things clickable in different ways. And again, these are just giving me the basics of how I can edit and share this information. But again, the video itself, if we go into the AI avatars, and you can build out your own custom avatar here. You'll see again, they don't have as many options. And because we're on a certain level, we only get a certain amount of things that we can do, right? And then they have the templates built in, which a lot of you might find super useful. And again, here's some of the use cases. Again, they focus a lot on sales, which is a little different than marketing. And then if we go to Vimeo and we open up one of the editors, this is where I can brand, right? Everything. I can do my subtitles and captions, and I can download this and I can utilize it in other tools. I can come up with different ways for folks to engage with the video. And I have some basic video editing tools here. So if you haven't used Vimeo in a while, they're building in templates. You can add text to your videos. You can add your own graphics. You can add additional audio. This gives you a little more flexibility when it comes to creating stuff for social media. Although I don't think they have as much kind of trending stuff in here the same way that you'd find it on Instagram. And then as we're wrapping up, I just want to mention Descript. Descript, again, is one of my favorite versions. All of these systems, if you look into their left-hand menus, when you log onto your home, they have different tutorials and areas where you can learn. Descripts is my favorite. I feel like they give a ton of ways for you to learn. And I often have my ChatGPT open and I literally just talk to it while I'm learning how to use the system. It's very knowledgeable about all of these tools, which is great. You can see I've already been creating an AI speaker for myself. This is my own audio that I'm working on. And with Descript, if you want to create a brand kit, you can do the layout packs. But when you're working on a project, here's what I want to just show you is here is the script. When I uploaded this video, which was a webinar, it gives me my entire script, right? So this was the first thing that it created for me. I then added the opening and closing slides. And if I go down here and say show the timeline, this is where it's showing me my tracks for different things, right? And so I'm able to see here is that slide. I've added some stock music. I've even made it so that the stock music is fading in and out. right? So I have the ability, and then here is the actual core video, which was the webinar itself at the bottom. So I can add in the sort of extra scenes. I can add in different graphics. I can have animations. Anything I create in Canva can be plugged in here. And then when we're over here, Underlord is their AI. This is where I can remove filler words. I can use the studio sound. I can edit for clarity, right? And I can even say what intensity. This is where if I've gone off track, if like something, maybe there's a technical problem and I've been talking about the technical problem, I can have it remove a lot of that stuff so it creates a clean version of the video content really focused on the topic. And this is why people love it when it comes to creating different types of podcasts. So I know we're right at the top of the hour. I'm just going to scroll through this for another minute so you can see there's so many tools in here. This is where I can create the clips, a highlight reel. I can pull things out of this hour-long video and do different things with it. I can adjust eye contact, right? So I can try to have the AI adjust the person on the screen so they're looking at the camera a little bit more. I can draft my YouTube descriptions. I can draft a title. I can create a social media post. It'll write a blog post for me. And here's all my writing tools. So this is why Descript has been probably the one I'm using the most right now for my own marketing content because of all these different ways that it's cleaning everything up for me and making everything easier. And when I'm here in the script, I can highlight. Originally, it didn't have Maria's name correct. I can click correct and edit it, right? When I do remove filler words, it'll actually highlight. I can remove everything, or I can look through them and I can say, actually, that's what makes it sound like me. I want to keep that, right? So again, you also have some of the more traditional tools in here. You've got stock photography, GIFs, video, stickers. You can add captions, and there's lots of other elements that you can build into this. So Descript is more of a full editor, and it gives you all of those things built into your system. So I feel like it has, from a marketing perspective, a lot of capabilities that are super valuable and can save time. And again, being able to learn it to me has been really awesome. So I know lots of folks have to go. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks, Mary, for being here. I'm going to answer a few questions just because I know there may still be some things that you want to ask, so don't hesitate. But I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful. Definitely do some free trials, at least one, and just test something out and see what you think about it. And watch the tutorials and see what you can learn. And don't be afraid to have ChatGPT and Gemini open so that as you're trying to learn, you can ask it questions and see if it can help you process it faster. And hey, thanks everyone so much for being here. I'm really glad this was helpful. Stephanie, your question, which of these platforms would be best for taking source images and documents and graphics and creating social media videos from them, augmenting with stock video? So I would say if it's about having your own assets that you want to upload into the system, Descript is probably going to be my favorite for that. I think Synthesia would also be good for that because you can create the layout packs inside of it. And I feel like that allows you to take a lot of your existing assets and then build out your own templates that are specific to what you do. I think with Descript, it's about really understanding what length you want things to be and understanding how like your existing like you're going to have so if you have long videos, like you can upload them and it's going to chop them short. If I have a bunch of shorter clips of things that I want to mix together, it's just going to be a different process where I have to build out those scenes and I have to add those things in. So I can have a scene with a graphic I created. I can have a scene with any number of video clips, and then I can add all sorts of animated graphics if I want. And then I have the ability to put it all together in Descript, and I have the ability to move things around very easily, match it up with different words I want said, all of that. And so I feel like that's probably one of the best ones, but I'm not so sure from a social media perspective. I still think it would be pretty time consuming until you are really good at the tool. So to that point, if you're using Canva for social media and you're already really good at that tool, it might not be worth it to replace it, right? Because Canva, you could do the same thing. You can upload all your clips, all your photos, all your graphics. You can build a brand kit, and it's already just going to have everything set up for social media sizing and length. And so that just might be a consideration to make. If you're already using Canva, you might want to just explore how that could do that work for you. All right, so I don't see any other questions. No problem, Stephanie. I don't see any other questions, but if there are any, feel free to jump in. In the meantime, again, to all of you, thank you so much for joining me for another digital drop in. I will send out the recordings and the slide deck by Friday. And I'm just so grateful to have you all in the community. Have a great rest of your day and good luck making more videos. And my contact information is always available when you receive this from me. So if there's videos that you want to share, that you want me to look at, if you have additional questions about these platforms, please do not hesitate to reach out. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you at our next digital drop-in June.